Greetings, everybody. Keith here. Hoping everybody's having a good day, enjoying life, living life, loving life. Want to remind everybody, please hit that like, share, and subscribe button. Of course, there's a PayPal link down there for anybody that wants to share some love. All is appreciated. I have received a couple here in the last few days, and certainly kindly appreciate those. Keep it up. Um, and of course, the StreamYard link is there for anybody that wants to join the panel. Tonight we're going to talk about intentionally defective grantor trusts. And it's a unique term I came across. It kind of just slapped me in the face because this is what we're actually dealing with. In that we have to intentionally defect in a corporate manner. In other words, it's kind of like the corporate denial. But instead of a corporate denial, we're going to admit the corporation, but we're going to put a defect in place. It's a defect. We defect from that because we're not of the capacity. Okay? So this intentionally defective grantor trust, I hope will explain this to some people that are kind of familiar with how trusts work and everything, as far as estates, estate tax, and income tax. They are two separate things, and you can actually prevent income tax by placing assets into a trust as property of the trust. And you do that by one of two ways. You can grant the property to the trust, or you can sell it. And that's the distinction. See, if you sell something to a trust, and that's a private sale, and you have transaction records and everything, and that trust now is owner of that property, and you get to beneficially use it, that kind of seals the deal. So again, I hope everybody's going to tag along here and has enough comprehension to understand estates, estate tax, income tax, and what it has to do with trusts, wills, living wills, and things like that. So the first thing we're going to look at is the agent is never liable. It's something I believe I did a short review on it not too long ago. So let's take a look at that. And this is from Basilicus Namos. Go over and check him out, or he's got another channel, Caucasian Sasquatch.
Now, this is where you're incorrect. And this video and the next video that I'm putting up will be because of your lack of understanding. And I mean no disrespect.
And I'm sure he will not mind me doing this. I don't believe he's monetized, and he's kind of like me. The information needs to get out there, but most importantly, people need to comprehend it. So, in that review I did, I correlated this: agent is never liable to UCC 3-402 signature of representative, wherein it says authorized representative giving an unambiguous authorized signature on the instrument is therefore not liable for the person named in the instrument. Again, denoting that the agent is the one that's signing on the instrument for the person that's named in the instrument, which is the liable party. It's always going to be the record that's liable, and it goes to the integrity of the record. If there's one error, it needs to be corrected.
You are saying in your video that to Mike that he is stupid because he don't get it. Well, actually, sir, you don't get it. The agent doesn't get punished. You're sitting here saying that the shareholders and the shareholders would be the beneficiaries. And as you know, under trust law, beneficiaries don't get punished, the trustees do. Also, you say the employees get punished. No, the employees don't. Let's use your analogy. Walmart got caught dumping some stuff. Who pays the fine? Is it the employee or is it Walmart, the corporation? It's Walmart. The employee doesn't have to write the check in his personal capacity.
This is an important distinction here. Again, it goes to that the authorized representative giving an unambiguous signature on the instrument is therefore not liable for the person named in the instrument. The person is the corporate entity, the legal entity, and you're acting on its behalf.
In other words, he doesn't go to his personal checkbook and say, "Oh my God, I've got to pay this $50,000 fine. I don't have the money. I'm going to have to go get a loan." No, he don't say any of that. Walmart, the corporation, which is the principal, pays the fine. So this is where you're incorrect. Number two, someone who is authorized to act for or in place of another, a representative.
Damn it, did it again. So it goes to that agent and principal. The agent is not liable, the principal is. And the principal is liable because that is the actual trustee. Now, that doesn't detract from the agent just going around doing willy nilly because the agent acting for principal is liable just as well for half the penalties only, but still just as liable because they can't do things as agent that the principal wouldn't have power to do themselves because the principal can't confer powers it doesn't have.
Generally speaking, anyone can be an agent who is in fact capable of performing the functions involved. The agent normally binds not himself, but his principal by contracts he makes. It is therefore not essential that he be legally capable to contract, although his duties and liabilities to his principal might be affected by his status. Thus, an infant or a lunatic may be an agent, though doubtless the court would disregard either's attempt to act if he were so young or so hopelessly devoid of reason as to be completely incapable of grasping the function he was attempting to perform. Your analogy is a poor analogy trying to explain what you're trying to explain. You're explaining agency, and you are proving you don't understand agency.
And let's go back here and talk about this real quick. The where is it?
Hey Keith, you were muted for a while there.
Yeah, I'm trying to make up for that here. Where is it? Oh, the agent normally binds not himself, but his principal by the contract he makes. So that's telling you these agents out there are making contracts. That's their duty, is to make contracts under their delegated powers. Greetings, JG. How you doing tonight?
Not too bad.
Good. Good to hear that. Still alive anyway. So the next one I want to look at is always use a LLC or corporation. This is the sense of it, yes. And that's why we're going to go over this intentionally defective grantor trust here tonight. So let's take a look at this one.
I'm sure you figured it out. I'm sure you figured it out that if you and a couple of your friends try to buy a plot of land out in the country and put some tiny houses on it, the government's going to stop you. They're going to say, no, this plot of land out in the middle of nowhere where you're minding your own business and no one can see you, this is zoned R1. You can only have one residential housing unit on this land. You and your...
He's talking those commercial terms and stuff, residential housing unit, the way it's zoned and everything. And zoning is for tax purposes. So you have to be conducting business on that land for an income purpose, an income in order to be taxed. Or if it's a state property, that can't be taxed until the testator dies and it moves into probate to settle the estate. And the only tax to the estate is for the state's administration of the execution of the will in the trust.
Your friends can't all live here at once. And if you guys decide to...
In other words, they're not supposed to spend their your entire lifetime administrating your estate because you've been deemed incompetent or haven't stepped forward. That's none of their business. They try to make it your business by inducing you into that federal government ID and everything. And that's not your estate trust. That's a public trust. And you're now being treated as an agent. And even though you're not liable, they hold you liable because you don't have the delegated powers to do what you're doing. Nobody's delegated you those certain powers. The only power you've been educated with is signing the document with your name, and that's signing over your rights, titles, and interest into property, which is tangible or intangible. And it's all based on a presumption.
To go ahead and do it anyway, the county is going to fine all of the landowners equally. So you're going to pay $700, you're going to pay $700, you're going to pay $700. It's going to be an S show. Well, let me tell you how to game this system. You and your friends don't go buy the land. You and your friends start a corporation, and then you have the corporation buy the land, and then you put your tiny houses on it and do whatever you want because...
This is the same thing with a trust, because a trust is like a corporate name. It's a legal entity. It's not necessarily a corporation, but it's a legal entity that can buy and sell the land for its proper use in possession of the living soul who is to benefit of that use.
Everything on the land now is private corporate business. And if the county tries to mess with you, they can't mess with you or your friends. They have to mess with the corporation. And that corporation is one entity with you and your friends behind it to fight back. If you're interested in solemnly swearing to be up to no good, follow me for more tips.
And that's because those are private contracts. And you can't interfere with private contracts. As long as it's a valid contract, You can't interfere with it. And in a valid contract can just be two witnesses agreeing that, yeah, that's what we said. We agreed to that. We didn't need you to agree with us. We were able to do that with our own plenipotentiary powers on our own. Let's listen to this one more time. Pay attention. It's not that you need a corporation. It's establishing that a legal entity exists in which the interests can be transferred through.
Yes. I'm sure you figured it out that if you and a couple of your friends try to buy a plot of land out in the country and put some tiny houses on it, the government's going to stop you. They're going to say, no, this plot of land out in the middle of nowhere where you're minding your own business and no one can see you, this is zoned R1. You can only have one residential housing unit on this land. You and your friends can't all live here at once. And if you guys decide to go ahead and do it anyway, the county is going to fine all of the landowners equally. So you're going to pay $700, you're going to pay $700, you're going to pay $700. It's going to be an S show. Well, let me tell you how to game this system. You and your friends don't go buy the land. You and your friends start a corporation. And then you have the corporation buy the land. And then you put your tiny houses on it, do whatever you want, because everything on the land now is private corporate business. And if the county tries to mess with you, they can't mess with you or your friends. They have to mess with the corporation. And
that's the nexus. They have to mess with the corporation. And like I said, the corporation is the paperwork. It's the documentation. It's the evidence. And if you have private evidence and you're holding of a private agreement and they have no record of it, then guess what? They don't have a claim. And this is the problem in every foreclosure, mortgage, anything that has any issue to do with taxes, because they have to have that corporate entity as that respondent, plaintiff, defendant. It's never going to be the man. And right now, the only corporate entity is the creation of the state that you are authorized to use. And that authorized use is as an agent, as they said. But the thing is that you don't have the education to, oops, we lost her. You don't have the education to evidently fill out the documentation right and put yourself in that document in the right capacity. And therefore, a presumption that you're an agent is laid. And that's what the paperwork looks like. When we learn the trust law and how to establish ourselves as the grantor, beneficiary, trustee in the different capacities in the private, and have that recorded in our documentation with the proper contracts or whatever, there's nothing they can do. They can't interfere with private contract. Why is that? Because private contract has to be protected in trust. You can have private contracts, but if they're not established in a trust, then you're not going to have any protection, and that's them laying their presumption that they have authority over you then, because you have no entity. Still, that doesn't defeat your authority. That's still the presumption they're going to lay. But that's because that's the only way they can operate. Go ahead, JG.
Why would they want to interfere?
Money. They presume everybody that has an ID, and they presume everybody does have an ID, because that's the indoctrination. We all grew up believing we had to have that ID. That's the fallacy. That's for federal employees and contractors. If you're not contracted with the government, which is a private contract, whether they're a public entity or not, your contract with them would be a private contract. In that private contract, if that contract presumes that you're an agent acting in public, I'll be damned. But again, that's still just a presumption. Everybody's been indoctrinated to believe the same presumption without knowing the facts. So let's look at some of the facts. Investopedia. Investopedia, intentionally defective grantor trust, IDGTs, in estate planning. What is an intentionally defective grantor trust? An intentionally defective grantor trust is an estate planning tool used to freeze certain assets of an individual for estate tax purposes, but not for income tax purposes. Freeze certain assets. In order to get to those assets, you have to have a purpose in order which to liquidate them. Right now, it is solid. Freeze. It is solidified. The intentionally defective trust is created as a grantor trust with a loophole that allows them to receive income from certain trust assets. Now, it doesn't say you are receiving income from certain trust assets, but it allows you to receive income. Doesn't say you have to. The grantor pays income tax on any generated income. So if you have a certain trust asset known as a tractor, and you use it to plow certain fields, but you do not use any of the products in which you use in those fields for an income, but rather through equal exchanges, private contracting, then there's no generated income that can be taxed. But the estate does not incur any estate taxes when the grantor dies. Does that sound like flipping tables, JG? Does it seem like somebody already flipped the tables on us and now it's just time for us to get fucking mad like Jesus and flip the damn tables back?
Yeah, it's time to be undone from the straw man.
The bankers have entered into the temple. And that's the mentality of the cost of living that's entered into your mind. Your body is your temple, and you fear this cost of living and the expenses and income taxes and all this other stuff. That's all a fiction-based system. And the liability remains in fiction. So let's continue on.
I got a quick question. My fault, Keith.
Go ahead.
Isn't it illegal to put your child as a corporation with the birth certificate and Social Security? Isn't that illegal to?
No, you put the birth certificate, you sell the birth certificate to the trust for trust property. Now they can use it for income. Now they can use that to invest as a trustee and produce an income for the beneficiary. You can use it for that. Income comes from investment. Greetings, tribe. What is income? Income is something you invest in. You put something into something else in hopes for a positive return. Now, it doesn't always work like that. You don't make an income. But when the markets go up, generally, most people hold on to things long enough for it to make that profit, and then they get a return that it was, and it's greater than what they put in before. That's an income. It's a profit. Now, that income is a process, and like I said, it's actually the practice of investing, because even if you suffer a loss, it still incurs taxes. I'll be damned. So, an intentionally defective grantor trust allows a person to isolate certain trust assets to segregate income tax from estate tax treatment. It is effectively a grantor trust with a purposeful flaw that ensures the individual continues to pay income taxes. It is effectively a grantor trust. Who is the grantor? Who established this trust in law? With a purposeful flaw. Sounds like maybe somebody misspelled something in a spell of illness. Flaw that ensures the individual continues to pay income taxes. IGGTs are most often utilized. That's that utility. When the trust beneficiaries are children or grandchildren, where the grantor has paid income tax on the growth of assets they will inherit. So, what we have says device is not connected, Eleftheria. Says device not connected. Maybe go out and try again. Come on. So what we're looking at is that segregation of the estate from the corporate entity. The corporate entity is what's being administered through the state. That corporate entity is actually part of your estate. And rather than doing a denial of corporate establishment, you accept the corporate establishment as part of the estate and adopt it because it wasn't originally yours. It was a creation of the state through a legal means. And since it's a detriment to you, and you are a holder in due course with rights to enforce the security interests, you can now enforce those security interests by selling it to your trust. Let's see, I bought it for $25. I'm going to sell it to the trust for $25. I think that sounds fair. It's an even, equal exchange. But now the trust owns it, and it can be used by that corporate entity for investing. Does that make sense? That's where you grow the assets, is that in that fiat currency. And then when you deposit that fiat currency into your account, it's under a special directive wherein they are now obligated to give credit. It's informed use of credit by extending your credence of your estate through a commercial entity for such investments. If you want, you don't have to. You can still increase the estate by simply private contracting the equal exchange of other property that you then sell your trust. Or sell to your trust, excuse me. Understanding intentionally defective grantor trusts. Grantor trust rules outline certain conditions when an irrevocable trust can receive some of the same treatments as a revocable trust by the Internal Revenue Service. These situations sometimes lead to the creation of what are known as intentionally defective grantor trusts. So basically, it's segregating the irrevocable trust from the revocable trust. It's going to do the same thing. It's segregating the irrevocable trust of the individual passed down from mom and dad that continues to pay income tax. However, if that individual stops all of a sudden investing and is no longer making income, it's still established and recognized, and that's all it takes. It's sitting there idle, holding property as part of the estate, and it has no interest in investing. This is Job. Story of Job. In these cases, a grantor is responsible for paying taxes on the trust's income. So again, as grantor of the trust, right here, I'm the one that created the trust. I'm the grantor. I'm liable for taxes. So if I do invest for income taxes, then I'm liable for the income tax. If I don't invest, then there's no liability. But trust assets are not counted toward the owner's estate. However, such assets would apply to the grantor's estate if the individual runs a revocable trust, because the individual would effectively still own the property. Everybody still with me here? See, it's the legal entity that has that ownership. It's the living soul that has possession and use. And in order for them to get control and entry, they have to be able to defeat the corporate entity, the legal entity that has that control. Yeah, it says devices not connected. I don't know what's going on there. Don't know what, I don't run across that problem. Anybody that can help her out? I've got somebody trying to enter Eleftheria, and it says devices not connected. Wish I could help you, dear. Had you up earlier. I don't know if you're too far from your mobile Wi-Fi or whatever, but it says devices not connected. So, remember that definition of the individual, that's a person. And the ownership goes to the paperwork. So long as the paperwork is still true and correct, and that's all it is that record. Again, the integrity of the record is utmost. And if you can defeat their record with a record that is true and correct, and has the two witnesses required that performed that private contract in trust, then they can't defeat that. That's the problem with their legal system. Private right of action comes first. Estate taxes. For estate tax purposes, the value of the grantor's estate is reduced by the amount of the asset transfer. So if you transfer the entire estate, then where are the estate taxes? That's why there are no estate taxes. The individual will sell assets to the trust in exchange for a promissory note. So now the Keith Orland Little draws up a promissory note, known as an investment, also called an installment note, of some length, such as 10 or 15 years. They're telling you how to do this stuff. The note will pay enough interest to classify the trust as above market, but the underlying assets are expected to appreciate at a faster rate. See, that birth certificate sitting in there not being invested is not going to appreciate at any rate unless it's used. Now, once you use it, it being the underlying asset, it appreciates at a faster rate. Beneficiaries. The beneficiaries of IDGTs are typically children or grandchildren who will receive assets that have been able to grow without reductions for income taxes, which the grantor has paid. So again, you can invest, and on that side, that legal side, that investment allows that asset to have been able to grow, and then there are reductions for income taxes, which the grantor has already paid. So I made $1,000 investment. It came back as $2,000. I ended up paying, $500 for taxes. So it grew from $1,000 to $1,500. I didn't make a profit off of it for myself. I made a profit off of it, but it's as part of the benefit package that goes to the inheritor, the beneficiary, who it's intended for. Now you can do the same thing with that private property in your private trades. Say I got a 1983 Ford, that's a great farm truck, and I've got it in the trust as property for my beneficiary, so named to receive that piece of property. However, some young gentleman comes along and says, hey, that's a nice 1983 Ford Chevy pickup. I'll give you above market value. I might be interested depending on how above market value it is. And in that exchange for above market value, say he gives me $2,500 for a truck that's valued at $1,500. I'm probably going to say, yeah, he might even swing it at $2,000 because I'm still going to make that $500. How do you value your property, and how do you invest it? Do you invest it in some public scheme hoping, or do you do it financing things right from the beginning, settling them right from the beginning in equal exchanges, saying, hey, I'll tell you what, I'll sell it to you, young man, but I got to tell you the story is it's a great truck and blah, 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 and it's going to my grandson, blah, blah, blah. And by the end of the story, the guy says, yeah, I'll give you $2,500 for it. You have to understand how to express your value system, either publicly or privately. And I'm telling you, if you don't know how to express it, you're going to end up expressing in public, and they're going to take you for what you got. The IGDT can be an effective estate planning tool if appropriately structured, allowing a person to lower their taxable estate while gifting assets to beneficiaries at a locked-in value. Just what I explained. It's a 1983 Chevy or a Ford pickup truck that's been used for the farm, and it's a great truck, and it's gaining value. But by the time it gets there, I might be able to take $2,500 now and invest it now in the financial market and make it even 10 times that much. Whereas sitting over a few years, it might only double. So yeah, I'll sell the truck and use the profit to invest and make a bigger profit. I don't have to lock them in for a certain value. I can use those assets as grantor in a revocable trust by changing the trust, making amendments, say, hey, I'm going to replace this truck with $1,500, or excuse me, $1,500 for its fair market value, locked in price. And then I'm going to take what I get out of this truck. I'm going to invest it. And then I'll add to this $1,500 if I make a profit. The trust grantor can also reduce their taxable estate by paying income taxes on the trust assets. But again, you would only pay income taxes on the trust assets if you had a collateral documentation that you could use for investment purposes while maintaining the assets yourself and using them and their value as an asset to invest. And thereby, that's what you pay the income taxes on. You're able to use the asset value in a fictional system and say, hey, I'm going to defer a debt for the value, market value of this truck. And I'm going to pledge it to you, but I'm going to maintain it as security property. You have a security interest in it as a lien against it if I fail. It's the same thing. So essentially, you're gifting extra wealth to beneficiaries if you invest. Either way, if you do it right, you're gonna give extra wealth to your beneficiaries because that's the purpose of prosperity and abundance. If people learned how to live their life right, they would have that automatic prosperity and abundance, and we wouldn't be discussing this issue about poor and homeless, hungry, starving. Important, due to the complexity, an IDGT should be structured with the assistance of a qualified accountant, certified financial planner, or an estate planning attorney. And remember, folks, this is not legal advice. If we look at the streamer going across the bottom, you'll see it says fair use. Fair use. All clips are used for fair use commentary, criticism, and educational purposes. See Hosen Zada versus Klein, 276 F Supplement 3D 34, SDNY 2017. Also see equals 3 LLC versus Jukin Media Inc. 139F. There we go. It looks like we're connecting now. So back to it while she's coming up. There she is. Greetings. Am I pronouncing that right? Eleftheria. You have to unmute, dear. Yeah, you should have a microphone icon on your screen somewhere. You have to unmute it. Well, while she figures that out, Michael Ravota says 1031 exchange, and he's referencing 26 U.S.C. 1031, and that is exchange of real property for productive use or investment. Here it says, can't unmute your guest. Their mic is not connected. So go to your microphone icon, and it should have 3 dots, and you should be able to open that up and connect mic to your device. So yes, spot on, and that is in relations to subsection H of 26 U.S.C. 1031, where it speaks about property located outside of the United States, therefore is not of like kind. And the only property outside of the United States or the only property that the United States would be able to claim is property of like kind. And the only property that even exists in the United States is the record itself. You show me the definitive place where the United States is. To this day, nobody's been able to show me that. It says United States is located in Washington, D.C. So these people teaching these students in school and looking at a map and saying this is the United States is a blatant lie, without disclosing the underlying fact that is a special maritime territorial jurisdiction of the United States, and that the United States is a debtor, and the debtor is located in Washington, D.C., and being Washington, D.C. has no statehood, it too has no statehood, and yet we have all these sovereign states that gave up their sovereignty to the United States as a, oh goodness gracious, for a corporate entity. All right, well, we'll keep waiting while you try to figure that out, dear. Again, that's something I don't know how to, you have to click your icon, mic icon, or the three dots next to it or whatever, and it should open a panel for you to connect to a mic and give you a choice of what mic. So, selling assets to an intentionally defective grantor trust. The structure of an IDGT allows the grantor to transfer assets to the trust either by gift or sale. Gifting an asset to an IDGT could trigger a gift tax. So the better alternative would be to sell the asset to the trust. So now you have collateral documentation of a fictional trust that you created that owns the property. It has first lien because it is the corporate entity that owns it. Anybody else that would want to put a lien against it would have to put a lien against the trust because it's no longer your asset. You have collateral documentation proving the contract that the asset was sold. That is now your asset. The equal exchange of documentation for ownership in the trust. When assets are sold to an IDGT, there is no recognition of capital gain. It's the equal exchange of equal assets. That paperwork you have is the collateral asset with equal consideration because it is the evidence, in fact, of the truth of the events. Which means no taxes are owed. This is ideal for removing highly appreciated assets from the estate. $3.5 million house I'm going to sell to the trust for $1, while it remains its 3.2 or 3.5 million fair market price locked in for the beneficiary. My $1 receipt has a $3.5 million value on the private side. It is not dollar for dollar. In case you don't understand HJR 192, the gold clause, and that phrase, dollar for dollar, this is why we ask for specific species. What species of dollar are you asking for? The coffee bean case. That one house for $1, it's 1 unit for 1 unit. That $1 equals that one house. That one house as a unit is 3.5 million Federal Reserve notes. Locked in. In most cases, the transaction is structured as a sale to the trust, to be paid for in the form of an installment note. So the promissory note comes from the trust. as a deferred payment. They want to come after it. All they're going to get is $1. Payable over several years. The grantor receiving the loan payments can charge a low rate of interest, which is not recognized as taxable interest income. Tell you what, I'll charge you 1% interest on that dollar, buddy. Okay. Are you guys catching on to this yet? I mean, do I sound insane, or is this lawful consideration according to, like I said, dollar for dollar? I'd like to know your species, because my species, dollar for dollar, that dollar equals that house. And that's legal tender for all debts, public and private, and it doesn't say how much. It just says dollar for dollar. And I've defined this dollar pursuant to this dollar, this unit pursuant to this unit. I unified them. They are the one that create unity. However, the grantor is liable for any income the IDGT earns. Again, if that asset is a house and it's not earning income, and it's being used for its natural intent as shelter and other varying provisional purposes, such as an educational center for your children, a temple for where you pray to your God, whoever that God is or whatever that God is, that's private. They have no business records that say you're performing commercially under any function. If the asset sold to the trust is income producing, such as rental property or a business, the income generated inside the trust is taxable to the grantor. The income generated inside the trust. It's taxable to the grantor. Where's this third party that comes in and says the income generated inside the trust is taxable to the grantor? Well, that would be the IRS, because you're operating a corporate entity, a legal entity. And all they're doing is making sure that the records are kept correctly. The IRS is your friend. So the income generated inside the trust, do you or anyone else have any record showing that there was income generated inside the trust because the trust used the property as an investment to so intentfully generate income? Or was it for private use? In and amongst itself. What makes a grantor trust intentionally defective? Intentionally defective refers to the fact that the grantor no longer owns the assets in the trust. They are removed from the estate, but still pays income taxes on any income earned from the assets in the trust. So do you see what mom might have done? Do you suppose she might have sold that asset? And now the individual that grantor that granted everything, the living soul that did the granting, even though it wasn't actually named a trust instrument or anything, it was actually, and she was actually known as an informant, what it did was it created trust instrumentality. It created a legal instrument that incorporated the United States as a business and the IRS as a tax agent. the principal and the agent. How are intentionally defective grantor trusts taxed? IDGTs are not taxed when assets are sold into them or if they appreciate because there is no recognition of capital gains. Okay, so there's no recognition of capital gains by selling them to a trust, particularly when there's a promise to pay put out, a note, an installment note, to pay back with interest what it owes the grantor. In equal exchange, the grantor pays income taxes if there's income from the IDGT. So if there's no income, and he's letting me use the property, what else do I need? So all I need to do is use the instrument, birth certificate, sell it to the trust, and let the trust use the instrument in a usufruct. That way, anytime somebody comes along, like I said, there's that $3.5 million that can be attached. It's whatever amount you want. Evidently, as we've seen through some of these SEC agreements that they give these certificates for, validating the value for investment. So say I did do that, and it's $3.5 million for that house, and all I got to do is present that promissory note in the proper way for that $3.5 million in credit, informed use of credit, for that United States business that's bankrupt. See how it kind of offsets that debt, flips that table again, doesn't it? Okay, she's back. Did we figure it out? Have you figured out how to unmute? It's telling me I can't unmute you from here. It says your mic is not connected. What happens to an intentionally defective grantor trust when the grantor dies? Remember, this is the point when the grantor dies, that testator, he's got a will and a living will and all that. And when that testator dies, that revocable trust is now an irrevocable trust because the execution of the will must be followed. You cannot revoke it at any point. You can't change it now. Now it's got to be followed through with. It's got to be completed. Okay? If there was an installment note, the principal and any accumulated interest are included in the grantor's taxable estate. So again, if you don't use that birth certificate to invest and there's no accumulated interest because there's no, you gave it to them, zero interest, 0.1% interest, whatever, it's going to be very low. However, at the assets, those interests are included in the grantor's taxable estate. However, if the assets were sold into IDT, they are not included in the taxable estate and can be passed on to the beneficiaries. So the importance of creating the trust and selling the assets to the trust, selling the estate assets to the trust, is so that the tax in the taxable estate and can be passed on to the beneficiaries. So the problem at the enumeration at birth is the failure of someone to create an intentionally defective grantor trust. And there she figured it out. Okay, am I saying that right? Eleftheria. Greetings. You're on. Your mic's open.
Okay. Hello. Do you hear me?
We hear you well. There must be a lag.
Can you hear me? Okay. Greetings from Greece or in Washington, D.C.
Greetings, greetings. That's
We
a
are
long way to
also
go.
a corporation here. Yeah, we are in the other side of the Atlantic, but we have the same situation here in Greece, ex-Greece. Now from December 11th of 20 and to 12, we are also a corporation. And the Greek government is not the proper office. The jurisdiction is off, is only in Washington, D.C.
Yes, and
We
that's
are non-citizens, non-residents of continent of America, all Greek people.
yeah, and see that's how far this corporate entity goes. Is it's not just the United States, it's the UN. See, and that's that all caps name thing.
Yeah.
That's the importance of that, and that's why we have to establish our own trust to do the same thing. And what they're doing, the administration is acting outside of their delegated authorities. They don't. They have federal delegation of authorities to do certain things, but they don't have the authority to do which the federal government doesn't have. And that's what they're doing. The same thing I'm sure is going on in Greece. And that is because they think that they're running these contracts and these trusts. Like I said, they're presuming everybody's a resident, a corporate entity of some sort, and therefore they're liable for their actions unless they're just stupid and insane, which is really the only two ways to get out of it. You know, everybody's presumed to have a
I have
certain.
I have set my, yeah, Keith, I have set my own trust. I'm the beneficiary of my strawman, of my legal entity, because due to false pandemic, I had troubles with CP agents. I had drawn unschool my two sons. I told them that my sons are not their own creatures. They're not the real creatures of the state. They are physical bodies, living souls. I
Yeah,
filed with email, not in the court. I didn't get into the court. I filed 12 preassumptions of law and I rebutted. And
bingo.
the affidavit of truth with extreme prejudice.
Absolutely. Can
I
I
also studied very much
can I stop you
the
right there?
law.
She mentioned
Of course.
we went over this not too long ago, and I believe it's on my community page. I posted about the 12 presumptions of the Roman courts, the 12 presumptions of law, and how what I used to rebut them as far as the scripture. And that's a great point because that's what they're doing. They're using those 12 presumptions, and with those 12 presumptions, you're figuratively performing the functions of a public office as a public servant. That's the presumption.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
Everyone is a diplomat in here. Everyone, we have diplomas for everything, almost for everything. And that's why we are considered as counselors of our diplomatic agencies here in Greece. That's
I
why
love the
we
word.
must file.
I love the word. I love the words. I love the words I love the words you're using. This counselor and diplomacy, and yeah, it's pay attention, folks. Go ahead.
Yeah, you have to study the law. I'm watching you from 2020. It's a long road for me. All the lawyers, attorneys are taking an oath to the bar association registry. They are under the British royal crown. That's why all persons with capital letters are strawmans. They are not considered to be living souls, living bodies. They are dead corpses. They are corporates. Human also are creatures like animals. They are considered like animals. That's why you need a legal representative in the court of law, color of law, in order to speak. They don't leave you to speak. You are a dead man doesn't speak. That's why we all must study what Keith says and study the law.
Absolutely, and that's why
We must all take solicitor.
and that's why
We
when you
all
learn
must
how to
take
write,
solicitor training.
right,
We must learn how to write legal documents.
right, when you learn how to write up your own contracts and understand that you can contract with yourself by creating a corporate entity for yourself, then you write that contract and you pay yourself one way or another, whether it be with a promissory note or whatever. You learn how the system is rigged and you rig it for your use.
That's exactly.
So let me continue on here.
We
She
must
mentioned,
understand that all the local constitutions are invalid right now. The only thing that is valid is maritime law or else corporate law. So we
correct.
can't go to a civil court, to a color court, to ask for our civil rights because we are not civil citizens of our state. We are
Correct.
considered to be the enemies of our state through expatriation statute.
Yep.
Jurisdiction is set by statute.
Yep. By defect.
Yeah.
So anyway, let me continue on here. She mentioned something about the the all uppercase corporate stuff, and that's all through contracts, and that's the royalty, the Royal Warrant Holders Association. These are contractors that a royal warrant of appointment is a document that permits a company to use the royal arms in connection with its business in an appointed trading capacity. What is a royal arms? Is that a stamp? Did you know Her Majesty's Union Custom Codes refers to her union, her labor union, known as the Universal Postal Union, the contractor of the world. So let's get back to the trust stuff here. Personalized advice when you need it. Oh, this is that. I guess we finished it. It says they do not include if the assets were sold into the IGT, they are not included in taxable estate and can be passed on to the beneficiaries. So if you don't sell them, they can be liquidated, like I said earlier. So you need to freeze the assets, and then they can't be liquidated. Freeze them and don't use them, or whatever you need to do to use them, collateralize them to pay back that promisor. I don't know. Whatever you want to do. Just make sure you're competent of the finances. So the next thing I wanted to look at as it relates to this trust and everything else says, what are the requirements for private estate planning? Now, this is U.com. Over here in the left-hand corner, you see it says U.com. And this is just an AI search program. Just a generative AI search program that you can do like any other AI chat GPT. And it says, private estate planning involves several key requirements to ensure that your assets and finances are properly managed and distributed according to your wishes, your will. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about. English read backwards. First thing we're going to talk about is the will. Here are the essential components. Will. A will is a fundamental document that outlines how your assets will be distributed upon your death. It's important to have a will in place to ensure that your wishes are carried out and what your family members and beneficiaries are provided for. Additionally, a will can address issues such as the management of assets for minor beneficiaries and the appointment of an executor for your estate. So what we're talking about right here is the very fact that if it's your will to set up benefits for your beneficiaries, then you need to sell the assets, like it explains, to a corporate trust that you create, because you can only control that which you can, only the one that creates can control that which they created. So even though you create the trust and you sell your assets to the trust, you still control the trust. You still control the estate. You still control the assets. Okay? It's just that the assets are now legally recognized as owned by the trust. They have control and entry as to legal title. Now, that legal title is your paper documentation showing that they have control and entry. The possession and use is in yours. You get to use that 1983 farm truck. Okay? You can use it, you can store it, and you can make intended plans that, hey, if I pass away before the truck is used up and destroyed or whatever, and it's still in good shape, it goes to the grandson, da-da-da-da-da. Okay? It's that simple. It's important to have a will in place to ensure that your wishes are carried out and that your family members and beneficiaries are provided for. Additionally, it says nothing about taxes. Okay, understand that. A will can address such issues such as management of assets for minor beneficiaries and appointment of an executor for your estate. In that will, you're going to have a healthcare power of attorney. You're going to have a financial power of attorney. And that together is going to be known as a living will. Your will should consist of a living will. In other words, a subpart. In that subpart, you should have two sets of information, which would be subsets. A subset of information for healthcare power of attorney and a subset of information for financial power of attorney. That will is the express trust. You have the assignment of a trustee. You have beneficiaries named and property so distributed, wish to be distributed. That is the expression of a trust. Okay? All you have to do is name it. Trust. Establishing a trust can be an important part of estate planning, especially for managing assets, providing for minor beneficiaries, and minimizing potential conflict among beneficiaries. So you see what that's doing? This stuff here establishes that. This stuff here is establishing a trust. Understand that. Your private documentation is establishing a private trust. Under that private trust, you have a private contract with the trust who purchased all of the assets. And it now has an installment note. I am holding it as holder in due course. First lien. Review and update. This goes to that revocable trust. This is a revocable trust as set up. It's an express trust and it's revocable because in here, these parts you can change. You can change your healthcare power of attorney if you decide to change it. You can change your financial power of attorney if you decide to change it. You can change your beneficiaries if you decide to change it. It's a revocable trust. Once you die, the terms set forth out in your trust as you wished at the time you died, now it's irrevocable. They can't change it. It has to be executed upon your will. And that means you have to appoint an executor for your estate. Legal assistance, depending on the complexity of your estate and your specific needs. Seeking legal assistance from an attorney or estate tax professional may be advisable to ensure that your estate plan is comprehensive and legally sound. Simple. In summary, private estate planning involves creating a comprehensive plan that includes a will, powers of attorney, living will, and potentially a trust. And again, I'm telling you, done properly, a will naming your beneficiaries with a living will containing a power of attorney for medical issues and a power of attorney for financial issues, and possibly even a power of attorney for legal issues, and possibly even a power of attorney for educational issues. Various different powers of attorney as subsets is the expression of a will, or the expression of a trust, because you have assigned a trustee position, the functions of a trustee, to somebody else to execute your will, to somebody else to execute your legal documents, to someone else to execute your financial instrumentalities. Are we with it? Is everybody with me? Everybody understand that? I think it's pretty simple. I think it's important that people start learning to go through this documentations and learn how to construct it. There's a lot of different templates that you can see online. And the first basic thing that you give anybody in regards to those private documentations that we just went over is a certificate of trust. That's it. Establishing that the trust is there and there are trustees named. You need anything, you just need to speak to the trustees, and it's a matter of privacy, not a public affair. You don't have the right to drag our name, legal or otherwise, into the public and say it's a public, we're performing the functions of public office. We're not. That's a false presumption. We're not a resident. We're not the United States citizen known as a United States business. We're not the Greek citizen known as a Greek business. Very simple. And that brings us to the end. I certainly appreciate you coming up. You got anything else you want to say, Eleftheria?
My name is Eleftheria and means liberty, freedom, and the boat behind me, it has a flag which says freedom. My husband bond has bond. We have bond, marriage bond. Everything is bonded. My soulmate, I say better, has painted years ago before he meets me, and he named that boat with my name, with a name that my parents, pair of rents, parenthood, named me. They give me that name. I don't know for sure if this is my name, the name of our Father who is in heaven had intently to give me, had the intention to give me. I don't know. We are
Yeah,
spirits inside our body. That's why we only have the time of our birth and we don't know either the place nor the time that we will live from this life.
yeah, and it sounds to me like that's divinely inspired. Two paths crossing like that, and it just sounds. It's like one of them blatant signs that I just don't think you can ignore, and I don't think you should even question it. Just my opinion. All right. Well, if
Yeah,
that's all we got for tonight, unless you got anything else, um,
so
and again,
happy
yes, I appreciate you coming
to
up,
have the opportunity.
and I hope to see you, and I hope to see you more because I think it sounds like you've got a good grasp on what's going on when it comes to
Thank you very much.
this corporate entity. And I think that's important for people around the world to understand. It's not something that's just happening here in America, folks. We have Hitler's willing executioners all around the world. And I hope you don't mind my new background I put up tonight. You know, that's one of those things. Let me see here. You know, I don't care who you're voting for, Kamala or Trump. The point
Hey,
is,
you.
if yeah, I want you. And if you don't like the image, you can kiss my ass because that's
Yeah.
what I do. I think it's happening around the world. I think people are bowing down and voting for these people in these political positions, and they don't understand what's really happening. And if you're voting and you don't understand what's happening, then you're casting a bad vote, and you are absolutely signifying, at least to myself, that you are Hitler's willing executioner, willing to put it into somebody else's hands and just do what they tell you because you admit they're your boss, you're the slave, and you're just doing your job. You gotta stop it. There's a greater importance in life, and we have to understand that the thing that's being used against us is that corporate entity, and it absolutely has no power unless you give it power. Once you learn how to give it power, it works for you. Help it work for you by understanding how it works. All right, and with that, folks, you know me. I want to
by,
thank.
by voting, Keith,
Go ahead.
Keith, we are validating our address.
Yes.
And our
Yes.
address is, I think the statute, that we have jurisdiction. We have not to go to
Yeah, that's
elect
the
anyone
yeah. That goes to
because
that.
we are giving them jurisdiction. Post
Here in the
office.
U.S. Here in the U.S. we have 52 U.S. Code 20503 National Procedures for Voter Registration for Elections for Federal Office. By application made
Federal agents.
simultaneously.
Federal office.
Right, by application made simultaneously with an application for a motor vehicle driver's license pursuant to section 20504 of this title. So let's look at it. And it says simultaneous application for voter registration and application for motor vehicle driver's license. So while you apply for a motor vehicle driver's license, you are applying for a voter registration for a political subdivision as a resident, claiming that address, and you are saying you are eligible for election to public office. And that's a lie. You don't know the first thing about being eligible for
Yeah.
election to public office.
And when you register your children to the state school, it's also a military area, and you are registering them for voting when they will be adults.
Yeah.
That's why we must not vote. No one.
Well, and not only that, but the public education system, guys. If you haven't watched my video on selective service and what is it, I urge you to go back and look at that, because the selective service is dependent upon you keeping your children in high school, which is generally around the age of 14. Now, once the young male enters into high school, a higher education, and he takes upon the benefit of that higher education when he can just quit. See, that's when they say you can quit high school. You don't have to go to 8th grade, go to 9th grade. Once you graduate 8th grade, you can quit school. That's about the time you're 14. So if you take upon that public education system of high school, which is a higher education, as a young male of 14 years of age, what you've done is taken upon a benefit while mom and dad still have you under their health care, which is another benefit. And now they say you are required to sign up for selective service. Excuse me? 14-year-old male.
Keith, I have
14-year-old male is not competent to contract yet. Therefore, he's not competent to take upon contract terms, indebting him in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, I have two sons. My elder son is 16 and a half year old. Here in Greece, the adult age, the maturity age is above 18, but they can vote from 17, that's new. And my little son is at 11 years old. I have both them, unschooled them. I'm the only mother from 2020 in whole Greece that I didn't send. In the whole pandemic area, my two sons, even though they told me, they threatened me from the CP agent that their education is very strictly obligatory. I sent them the 12 presumptions of court. I sent them the documents that are stating that they are taking the secret oath to the bar, so they can't be public officers and have oathed to a private agent, because we have a situation that is totally different. I had asked them to send me the number of their insurance office. They didn't have it. They threatened me. They will came to me in order to have a psychiatric evaluation because I was a lunatic. I was talking nonsense about the Strowman. So I sent them into the policy officers, policy agents. It's not the ordinary police. My bachelor in psychology, my master without degree to behavioral psychology. So I explained them that I am a specialist in psychology. So I unschooled them. I am the only mother in the Greece that I have made that. I also gave an interview to a journalist who asked me about that. I posted a video in Facebook publicly through post office, because Facebook is a post office portal also, to the minor judge. I was very, very strictly and with all the federal rules that you can think, and US code validations and violations also. It's very interesting. They do not accept that we are in maritime law. Okay, we all understand why is that.
Yeah, while they're running that Admiralty Maritime flag in the court.
Yeah. But the obligatory education is totally. Yeah.
Yep.
I didn't went to the court. I have the power of attorney. I would go there only to give them my birth certificate and leave. Okay.
So here we have
Say
it, folks.
goodbye.
Another
I would
incident.
put her in the lee and then.
Yeah, another incident where somebody gave them a birth certificate and walked out, and that's what they get. You know, we've seen videos where people hand them a birth certificate in court and they get mad and leave the courtroom. It's the same thing. They are operating in Admiralty Maritime. It is an Admiralty Maritime instrumentality, and they know the complexities of it. And that's all we're trying to do is show you the same complexities. It's a corporate legal entity that holds the liability. That's it. You are holder in due course allowed to enforce that instrument for those liabilities. All right.
The only thing they must prove you that you are not the owner. You can show them your ID, your police ID, that proves that you are the beneficiary of your trust. That's why it has your photograph and the strong man's name with capital letters.
Yep. And that's why I say you can just put that birth certificate in your trust. Yeah, you can put that birth certificate in the trust or sell it to the trust. And that proves that you're the beneficiary because it's intended as an asset for you. And now that trust shows that.
It's my copyright interest. It's
right,
my interest. Yeah, copyright interest.
Yeah, the corporate entity is now going to reflect.
And if they use, we have.
Yeah, it's going to reflect that you are in fact the beneficiary.
Yeah.
Right now, it doesn't. It shows that you're the trustee as the authorized representative.
Yeah. You are the debtor if you don't do this. You're still the debtor. And if you put this birth certificate, you sell it to your trust, then you become the security party creditor and beneficiary of your trust fund. And if they try to violate that, we will have the infringement trademark violation.
Yeah, that would be a part of it too. That's a part of establishing that trust and the coat of arms, family crest, and things like that, getting into the trade name and trademark and patents and inventions. So important aspect there too. All right. Well, with that, folks, we are done for the night. Eleutheria, I want to thank you so kindly. I hope you do come back anytime I stream. It's generally about
the only thing that may make these people continue is that
yeah, I think we've got a lot.
That's the first time I saw you in live because of the difference of the hour. Yeah.
I don't know what time it is over there, but this is about the same time I
Thank
come
you
on
very
this.
much.
Yeah, thank you.
It's 6:30 in the morning.
Oh, so you're just getting up.
Thank you very much.
You bet. You too. And with that, folks, we are out. And you know me. I love you, but I don't give a rat's ass whether you love me back. That's to say, I don't care if you hate me. I don't care if you don't respect me. That's on you. So may God bless you and have a good night. We'll see everybody next time. Bye now.
Always make